we were in negotiations.
Investing in real estate, they're winning, they're making money.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Real Estate Educators Podcast, where we provide the education you can build on. I am your host, Kevin Amolsch. Season number 4. What's up? Can you believe it's been 3 seasons already? And here we go, launching of season number 4. I'm having so much fun doing this podcast, you guys, because we're helping real estate investors and real estate educators. I hope you got some value out of seasons 1, 2, and or 3, and you're giving us a 5-star review and sharing this with your friends. That's how we build a community. That's how we help more real estate investors just like you. So help us out, give us a 5-star review, and share the podcast with a friend. So season 4, look forward or look ahead here. What are we thinking about this season? Well, something that we learned in season 3 that we really enjoyed were the market pulse updates. So we're going to continue those and we're going to expand on them slightly. So here's the idea. Right now, once a quarter, we do a market pulse update for the Twin Cities and the Denver metro area. Those are the 2 markets we do the most amount of business in. So we chose those 2 to focus on these market updates. Now, in the updates, what we've been doing is focusing in on those current markets: housing inventory, pricing, days on market, that sort of thing. How is real estate investors or real estate home buyers and sellers doing in the current environment? Well, I'd like to expand on that a little bit to go more of a macro view as well as dig into the local numbers and try to get into, what exactly is happening and how it impacts you as a real estate investor. So keep on the lookout for more quarterly market pulse updates with new expanded information on the economy to help you be successful in your business. Other than that, another change for season 4 that I'm going to attempt to implement here is more solo podcasts. So I could say that when you interview somebody else, we could get a ton of value, and we have been getting a ton of value out of that. And it's actually rather easy. You do a little prep work, and then you do the interview, that's it. What's difficult is to get on here all by your darn self and try to provide value for a period of time to bring value to you, the listener. And I'm going to attempt to do that. I'm going to bring in some ideas, things that I'm working on, things that are on my mind, things that I'm focusing in on to help me to benefit my own portfolio. I'm going to do that because I think that will help you as a listener. So what I would be dying to know is if that is valuable for you, and if there's any topics you would like me to discuss. Is there something that we should be covering? And if it's not one I'm comfortable covering on my own, I will go out and find a guest that will help us cover that. So do me a favor, shoot me an email. Let me know what you want to learn about, what you want us to discuss on the show. You could reach me at kevin@pinefinancialgroup.com. Again, it's very simple, kevin@pinefinancialgroup.com. So that's what's in store for season 4. And in this little opening intro episode here, I'm going to have my first attempt at a solo podcast, and I want to talk about none other than Donald Trump. Yes, he has been elected. We know he's coming into office. So what can we expect as a real estate investor with his policies? Well, here's the first thing about Mr. Trump. We don't necessarily know what is actually going to happen. So I'm going to talk about 4 different policy promises that he made in his campaign and how I feel that will impact you as a real estate investor. But what I won't commit to is if that's true or not, because just because he made a promise in a campaign does not mean it's going to actually be implemented. 1, I don't know that he necessarily wants to implement, and 2, he doesn't have ultimate authority here, right? That's why there's different branches in the government. So it will restrict him from some of the things he wants to do potentially. Although with it Republican across the board, it might be a little easier for him. But again, it's not going to be necessarily he just waves a magic wand and all of a sudden all this happens. But we'll start with the big one that you hear in the media, and we talked most about this. He talked most about this in his campaign, and that is the tariffs. So we know across the board, it's pretty close to 10% tariff on other countries when they ship goods into this country. That's just a tax on another country, you guys. It's very simple. So if you ship over a car, you pay 10% of the value in a tax to the United States. Well, that's low. That's actually pretty low across the board when it comes to world trade. So he wants to bring it more in line with what other countries are charging, and that's a 20% tariff. Okay, now that's across the board with the exception of China. Now, China, he's very upset with, and he wants to do somewhere between 60 and 100% tariff on China. Now, he recently came out, as the time I'm recording this, which is several weeks before it actually is released. He recently coming out with any BRICS country. He wants to increase tariffs on all of them, similar to what he's threatening for China. Now, China's already starting to retaliate, which we would expect. So one of the drawbacks of a tariff is a potential trade war, right? So other countries will respond, and it could either be they're not going to ship stuff that we need, or which is exactly what China's doing, or they're going to increase the tariffs on us. Okay, so the thought here is a good one. It's if we can increase the tariff, we'll do one of two things. Either we'll increase revenue because other countries will be paying more, or it'll become too expensive to ship the goods over here and we will start producing them in our own country. So that'll create jobs for Americans. So the thought is good. The problem, the downside here is it's going to cause inflation. There's no way around it. There's no other way to look at it. I don't think this is just an opinion. I think this is an actual fact. If pricing on goods goes up to get it into the country, that will get passed along to you and me and the consumer. So the prices of the goods that are shipped in will increase. If the goods are not shipped in and they're produced here, they will also go up, because if they were able to produce it for cheaper, they would be doing that, right? They'll only be producing them here if it's cheaper than what the new tariff creates, but it's still going to be higher than what it is today. So in either scenario, I know Trump looks at this as a win, and potentially it is, but it is going to increase inflation. So that's one, the tariffs. The other problem is, and it's actually listed as number 1 and number 2 on his website, and it's all about immigration. So the giant deportation effort using law enforcement and the military, millions of deportations a year, and then 2, just making it more difficult for immigrants to migrate into the country. So here's a downside to this. This is a pretty big downside, especially for real estate investors. We're going to be taking labor force out of the country, right? So the labor inflation will increase. So that's going to cause inflation also. It's going to become much more expensive to build houses, to remodel houses for your fix and flips if your labor starts getting deported. And 2, it's going to be a massive expense to implement this. One, the migration system is so far behind right now, over 4 years behind on hearing cases. It is estimated that it will be over 11 years behind if this is implemented. So we're going to have to staff up in the system, and then just putting the deportation efforts in place using the military law enforcement. That's going to cost a tremendous amount of money. So when you spend money, you cause inflation. So tariffs cause inflation. The immigration policy causes inflation. The next one that impacts real estate investors is the tax cuts. Now, he's thrown out some ideas like no tips on wages or no tax on tips, that kind of thing. But the primary thing he's running on here is not a tax break necessarily. It's an extension of a current tax breaks. So it's going to feel very, very much the same if this is successful as it does right now, because it is the same as if it was right now. So his first campaign, he had the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I'm reading off my notes here. It's TCJ. So if you hear TCJ, that's a Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And what that did was several things actually, but the main one is lower the tax brackets. So that helped everybody. We keep hearing that this is going to benefit the rich and hurt the poor. Well, I don't see it that way, because the main benefit here is the tax brackets going down, and that's every single bracket. So the lowest to the highest earners all have similar benefits with the tax brackets lowered. Another one is, this one does help investors because it's a pass-through deduction. So if you think about your S corporations, your LLCs, these are the entities we use in real estate. Those deductions will be able to be deducted on a personal return because they pass through those entities. That will be extended if this is successful. Another one that actually will hurt real estate investors is a cap on investment interest deductions. So right now, if you borrow money on a line of credit or something and you go out and make an investment, you're capped at a certain amount that you could deduct on your personal returns. Now, there is possibly some ways around this, but right now the deduction cap is $10,000, so it's rather low. So that one actually hurts us, but the other one that will help us is the bonus depreciation. So you hear about this in the real estate investment community. Bonus depreciation, it is set to expire in 2025. This is taking a big chunk of depreciation by using a cost segregation study and taking it all up front in years one and two. So it's a big benefit early on in an investment, and it's actually producing a lot of commercial transactions. So that's a pretty big impact if that were not extended, but it sounds like that one probably will be extended. So outside the investment interest cap, everything here will benefit you and I, benefit real estate investors with his tax plan. Another one that's going to impact us is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So he wants to make Fannie and Freddie private companies again. So they once were private back before the 2008 crash. So you and I and mutual funds and stock owners owned those companies. It wasn't the government. Now the government runs and controls them, and they're benefiting from them. They're actually very profitable entities, by the way. But when they go back to public, they're going to have net income expectations for their investors. So I would assume that you would see pricing and fees and interest rates increase with both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac if they go back to the private. So that one I think is going to have an impact on real estate investors as well. And then I'm just throwing a little bonus one here. He is very much against regulation. So if he's successful with some of the regulation plans, which he hasn't really disclosed what that means other than he wants to deregulate, but that typically does help real estate and help real estate values. So though that was my little bonus one, the regulation, I didn't really cover much of that because he hasn't really said much about it. But he does want to use that to help reduce inflation somehow. So that's the Trump policy plan and how it impacts real estate investors from my lens, from my view. Overall, I think it's probably positive for real estate investors in the short term, and it's definitely going to hurt everyone in the long term because it's going to come with some pretty significant inflation down the road, which is another reason why we love real estate, guys, because that's is a great hedge to inflation. Typically, investors that have assets do well in inflation. People who have no assets get hurt. So let's buy some assets and let's just try to do the best we can to benefit from whatever is coming. Again, I hope you're getting some value out of these episodes. Season 4, it's on the way, guys. I'm super excited to continue on with the Real Estate Educators podcast. Please hit the 5-star review and share with a friend and send me an email. Let me know what you want to learn about. Kevin@pinefinancialgroup.com. Hope you make this day a great one. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please be sure to follow and leave us a review. Oh yeah, and tell a friend.